Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.
And top of the morning to you. This is Newsline, live as always from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. And this morning we thought we'd do a segment dedicated to the rule of law. With the courts seemingly ever so busy and so many cases, the public must be wondering, as we are, what is quite happening. So this morning's program is dedicated to questions and answers surrounding the rule of law and how it's doing in Sri Lanka. And our guest this morning will be Mr. Upul Jayasuriya, the eminent legal personality, who's on his way to the studio. And as soon as he's here, we will have him live and to answer questions surrounding the rule of law. Sri Lanka appears to be in various forms of crisis. We've got economic crisis, we've got a social, and these crises are economic, social, cultural and political. Some say that we are at a political crossroads, but the only crossroads appears to be that Sri Lanka's economy is in such a dire strait and that it's headed straight down towards an abyss of despair from which there appears not to be an immediate relief. So any incoming government is likely to concentrate on the economy, or so many SMS messages suggest. We encourage you to send your messages this morning by SMS to 0772 300 305. Straight here to the studio, and we're hoping there will be a question surrounding the rule of law. We have one of the much talked about topics right now is the issue of the citizenship of one of the candidates, and to see whether that is a problem. It's before the courts, and so we won't be able to dig in too much to that, but we should try and keep within the parameters of that. The other matter, of course, is the protest by the disabled forces people who are protesting that they want their full pension, as though they had actually finished their term. But because of their injuries sustained obviously during the theatre of war, they have been unable to complete the full term, and therefore they get a pension that would have been from the moment that they stopped being in service, if you like, because of their injuries. But what they're saying is, we'd like to have our pension based on a full service within the forces, and that's their contention. Yesterday, Mr. Sajid Premadasa was there to listen to their tales, and of course their claim hasn't just started now. It started when there was very sort of inaction in 2014 and beyond, earlier than that as well, when the people were sort of asking for this, and the then government, obviously, as we can see now, hadn't done anything about it. And so the Vedana of these people, the disabled forces people, has continued throughout, and it's come to fore right now here. We've got a little package from last night's news, which we'll play to you right now, to bring you up to speed on this subject. And of course, we'll be joined by Mr. Upul Jayasuriya, the eminent legal personality, former chief of the BOI, and he will talk to us about the rule of law. In the meantime, here we go with that package.
UNP presidential candidate Sajid Premadasa met with the disabled soldiers who were protesting opposite the Fort Railway Station this morning. Minister Premadasa discussed the issues faced by the soldiers.
ඒ තත්ත්වෙම තමයි අද. ඒ තත්ත්වෙම තමයි සර් අද. කෙනෙක් පත්‍රිකාව හදලා ඔක්කොම කරලා ජනාධිපති අස්තන් කරලා ඒක කරලානේ. ඒක කරලා දැන් ඉදිරිපත් කරාම මේකේ බරපතල සංශෝධනය කරලා තියෙන්නේ අපේ මුදල් ඇමතිතුමා. මුතුමන්ලා දන්නවා මේ
You would know that a village was built in Ipalogama for soldiers. They took 800,000 rupees from every soldier. Today I give land to the soldiers for free. I gave them 1.2 million rupees to construct their houses. This is not during the run-up to an election. This was under my housing program. So I am a person who respects and considers soldiers to be divine. That has always been the case in the past, the present, and it will remain the same in the future. There are special election laws that come into effect during the run-up to an election. Under those election laws, my entire housing program across the country has been stopped. It is illegal for me to even provide a bag of cement to anyone. But under this situation, I will bring up this proposal of yours at the cabinet meeting tomorrow. I will raise this issue and we will see what will happen. I am prohibited from making any promises. I will tell you what was discussed after the meeting. I am a problem solver and not a person who engages in populist politics.
මාව හිර කරන්න බලාගෙන ඉන්න කොට්ටාසයක් ඉන්නවා. ඒගොල්ලෝ ගැන මට ලොකු කරුත්තක් තියෙනවා. අපි පාරේ වහලන්නේ ඕගොල්ලෝ හින්දා.
After meeting with the soldiers, Minister Premadasa expressed these views to the media. Honestly speaking, I am a person who is of the opinion that soldiers must be given the most amount of support. So I will present the opinion of these people to the cabinet and I will come back to them with an answer. After Minister Sajith Premadasa left the location, MP Arundika Fernando arrived there. The group, including the MP, held discussions with the chairman of the national movement to protect the rights of war heroes, UD Vasanta. Afterwards, the MP returned with opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa. We called off our fast today. We did that based on the statements made by the presidential candidates who would rise to power in the future. We hope that we will never have to come onto the streets in the future again.
Well, that was the situation yesterday. That was what was carried on our evening news yesterday. The protesters were visited by the freshly announced candidate from the United National Party and their alliance, Mr. Sajith Premadasa, who went on to explain the various matters that he is unable to do because the elections have, for the presidential elections have been announced. The crowd was also visited by the former president, Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa. We don't have it on record if any of those claimants, the retired, the injured forces personnel, whether anyone present there actually asked Mr. Rajapaksa why it is that he didn't do anything about it when he was in power. We don't have any recording of that, but nevertheless, after the arrival of Mr. Sajith Premadasa, followed by Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa, the fast that they were on was called off after it was agreed that both parties, Mr. Premadasa said that he would take it up at cabinet at the next available meeting, and Mr. Rajapaksa also promised that his outfit, the SLPP, will also look into it if and when they come into power. It's amazing that these matters of grave import that affect some section of the public, especially the people who gave virtually their lives, so they're ready to give their lives in pursuit of upholding Sri Lanka's sovereignty and the safety of us all are being treated in this rather shabby method. At least they ought to have had some sort of agreement or consensus, and which they obviously haven't, leading to these, this government inheriting these problems. Now then, when we talk about the rule of law, which is what we hope to be discussing with Mr. Upul Jayasuriya as soon as he gets here, he's stuck in traffic. When we're discussing that, our minds can go quite easily for the former Secretary of the Agricultural Ministry, Mr. Wijeratne, who informed the Presidential Commission that the former Agriculture Minister, Davinda Dissanayake, had pressurized him to sign the lease agreement between the Ministry and DPJ Towers back in 2016 to relocate the Agricultural Ministry. Now, the key here is not who pressurized what, but the fact is that it appears from sworn testimony of the Ministry Secretary that he was under some pressure. Now, if you remember, the former Presidential Secretary, Mr. Lalit Weeratunga, also was taken to court, where he's now on the matter is under appeal, but he did receive a jail sentence of 3 years, again because he signed off, and his defense was that was the orders that he received. It all sounds very terribly amiss that secretaries, who are in essence the chief accounting officers of any ministry, are sort of forced to do some things that are against the rules, against the law, and that when push comes to shove, that they are the ones who have to pay the ultimate price by going through the judicial process, perhaps even being jailed, losing their pension after years and years of service in government service, only to be able to retire with their reputation in shatters and their finances in shatters too. On that note, we'll go for a short break, after which we hope to have with us Mr. Upul Jayasuriya. And welcome back to Newsline. We are hoping to be in conversation with Mr. Upul Jayasuriya, but he's stuck in some traffic, unusual traffic, because he's always here on time usually. But on the phone, Mr. Rusipala Tenakorn, who's one of our regular panelists here, he's detected that we were having a challenge here with our guest, and so he's volunteered and telephoned us, and so he's on the line. Very good morning to you, Mr. Rusipala.
Good morning, Farah.
Mr. Rusipala, yes, unfortunately, the traffic's playing pucks, isn't it? So I was going to ask you, today's discussion is supposed to be on the rule of law. From a citizen Rusipala perspective, what do you make of this, with the newspapers full of court cases of this, that and the other, trials at bar and so on, and of course in the meantime we must congratulate the Attorney General's Department. They appear to be doing a lot of work. They've also sent home, interdicted, I think, the Solicitor General, Dilrukshi Wickramasinghe. So, but from citizen Rusipala's perspective, what do you think is happening here, the rule of law, Mr. Rusipala?
For us, I think something very unprecedented is happening in the area of rule of law in this country. You know, with this new Attorney General, the way he is focusing on certain matters and how he is representing the state has, thrown us some light, of some trust and belief in the rule of law, particularly in the context of the Easter Sunday attack and the appeal applications, the bail applications put forward by the former president, the former IGP and the Defense Secretary. I think the case that was presented by the Attorney General to courts is admirable. It's admirable because we cannot forget, amidst all this political confusion, one thing that we are beginning to forget is the event of the Easter Sunday thing, Easter Sunday attack. So far, for us, I had very recent discussions with His Eminent Cardinal also. They are all waiting to find out the culprits behind this. Who really masterminded this operation is a thing that needs an answer in this country. So therefore, in that context, I think as far as the rule of law is concerned, the Attorney General and the Attorney General's Department is very, very much in the correct direction. And secondly, with regard to Dilrukshi Dias and the FAR, I think that is how it should happen. If there has been some influence by politicians, dirty politicians, who want to sort of behind the back operations, who wanted to use the authorities in a very discreet manner in this form to influence them, I think the action that is taken and initiated by the Attorney General's Department is appreciable. And with regard to the other most important thing is this the opposition candidates' citizenship issue. I think this is a thing that concerns the whole country. I think everybody is waiting to see what has gone wrong. You know, this citizenship matter is a very, very highly sensitive thing in the democratic politics of this world. In Australia, if you remember, several ministers, several cabinet ministers, several state ministers, important people resigned on their own on these allegations of citizenship thing. But in this instance, you know, the law, somebody has gone to courts and then they are challenging this. It has to take shape. Now we have to find out. I think the judges will know the importance of giving a decision, a reasonable decision within a reasonable time frame.
Indeed.
So we can expect something to happen on the 3rd and the 4th. And if that happens, of course, thereafter we can see what is. But the candidate is very clear about his status, and he has said this very clearly, that I have fulfilled the requirements of becoming a citizen of this country.
Well,
so that is the situation.
Indeed. It's obviously a matter before the courts, and I'm sure everyone will be waiting on the decision of the court. I'm sure they will try and keep will act with the appropriate urgency. We're getting messages in. Thank you very much. And one message is says that we ought to mention that Mr. Rusupala Tennakoon is actually a SLFP member of the Colombo Municipal Council, which we are happy to do. I don't know if that's relevant to the questions that I'm asking Mr. Rusupala. I'm asking Mr. Rusupala in his capacity as citizen Rusupala. Now then, what you say is very interesting about holding the former Defence Secretary and the IGP, who's now sent home on leave, Mr. Pujitja Sundra, that they are being, they're trying to hold him accountable for what happened on 21st of April, Easter Sunday. That is obviously, everybody is waiting for those answers, and I'm sure including the people around the Katuapiti Church in Negombo. Over 70 houses around in the immediate vicinity of that church suffered a loss of some form. In one particular house, it was the father, the mother, and the paternal grandmother, all perished, leaving 3 children all alone to fend for themselves, in essence. And if not for other family members, they would their challenges would be even greater. Mr. Rusupala, what did the Cardinal have to say when you spoke to him?
I think I had a very heart-to-heart chat with him, because the subject of my discussion was, actually it is at my initiation, I requested to grant me a opportunity to see audience for me to speak to him, which he was kind enough to grant me. And I used that time to find out what his feelings were. He is very, very dissatisfied about the ongoing investigations in this matter, because he is under terrible pressure as the leader of the Catholic community in this country. And not only the Catholic community in this country, he is answerable to the whole Catholic world. And he is being asked questions. He is very embarrassed in this situation. So His Eminence, what he desires is that some justice should be done, and the real situation behind this event should be made known authoritatively. That is what he says. He has no politics in this game. He, of course, he has a responsibility by his religious community that we cannot deny. So in that perspective, he is very worried about what is going on, and he is to some extent relieved that some action is being taken by His Excellency the President, Maithripala Sirisena, at least belatedly though, appointing a commission to go into it. I have a feeling that His Eminence will find an opportunity, get an opportunity to go before this commission and himself, and then speak to them, and then tell or inform them what he feels about it. I think that he should do. I insisted that His Eminence do this because that is required.
But of course, the Cardinal, I'm sure, will be mindful of treading that fine line between ecclesiastical matters and governance, which is not up to the Cardinal, but certainly it's a fine line, and I'm sure that the Cardinal will have that on his mind. Now, just to bring you up to date with these various strikes, for example, the railway, yesterday only 9 office trains came into Colombo. The buses even this morning are completely and utterly more than the usual overcrowding. And today they said that there'll be 30 trains operating. All of this is to do with various salary anomalies. Today, even the State Minister of Civil Aviation has indicated that there might be some challenges in that area as well. 20 retired station masters have joined back to service to try and ease the backlog, if you like. And special bus services are already put into place near the railway stations to try and assist as much as they can the public. Meanwhile, while all of this is going on, even the government executive officers have launched a strike, and yesterday we had various suggestions that petrol might be challenged as well if they go on strike. So it appears that Sri Lanka is in one big pickle. But it's also interesting, as one of our viewers is saying, about the disabled forces who were protesting yesterday. It says here, how come the Rajapaksa brothers are promising things they should have done from 2009 to 2015? And all the protesters leave after the Rajapaksa appearance. And the message goes on to say, it looks pretty fishy the way they were fawning over them. So, you know, something that ought to have been done in the previous admin, 6 years, from between 2009 and 2015, nothing really has. Every sector in the country has been challenged, including the education sector. Today is an astonishing 22 days into a strike by the non-academic staff of the universities in Sri Lanka. And I was speaking to a student the other day, and it is simply not on because it impacts on their future, their studies and so on. Because without believe it or not, without the non-academic staff, not much can get done. You need all sorts of supporting staff. It's not only the lecturers who are there. On that note, it looks like we've been quite challenged with the arrival of Mr. Pujasuri to Mr. Rusipala Tenakun. That was marvelous public spiritedness that you called us when you detected what was going on. Thank you very much for that. And we hope to be back with a very special guest tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. Thank you very much for being with Newsline and for bearing with us. Thank you and have an excellent day ahead. And remember that News First will bring you all the updates as and when they happen right throughout the day. Take care and, of course, God bless.
News First Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali.